Trainspotting was released in 1996, is directed by Danny Boyle and stars Ewan McGregor, Robert Carlyle, Jonny Lee Miller, Ewan Bremner and Kelly Macdonald. The film follows Mark Renton, played brilliantly by Ewan McGregor, who is in the middle of battling an addiction with heroin, but at the same time he also has troubles with his friends, his family and his love life. Now, if you aren't aware, the reason I'm reviewing this movie is because its sequel, Trainspotting 2, is out this Friday in the UK, and I thought now is a better time than ever to talk about the original 90s cult classic. Before watching this movie for this review, I had never seen Trainspotting in my life. It had always been at the top of my must-watch list, but I had never got round to watching it. But I'm glad I have, because this is a bloody good movie. Danny Boyle is a director that I admire quite a lot. He's done movies like 127 Hours and Steve Jobs that I absolutely love. But yet again, he's done other movies like Slumdog Millionaire that don't really appeal to me. Trainspotting was the movie that propelled his career, and I can absolutely see why, because it is really well directed. From the moment the movie starts, this movie has Danny Boyle written all over it. It's very unique. There are a lot of odd choices in terms of camera angles, but it's a certain style that only Danny Boyle can get away with. It's very fast, it's very energetic, and very creative. Now, as soon as this movie finished, I immediately started comparing it to Requiem for a Dream, which I like to see as the American version of Trainspotting. It was released in the early 2000s, and it handles it in a lot more of a darker, more serious way. But I do think Trainspotting handles the topic of drugs better, because it doesn't just tackle it in a dark way, it tackles it in a humorous and at times emotional way. Like, it tackles so many different emotions as if you were watching actual people deal with these events. Whereas Requiem for a Dream, you're just seeing 4 people overdose on certain drugs. And this leads back to the directing, because I do think Danny Boyle does a better job with this movie than Darren Aronofsky did with the Requiem for a Dream. Because Requiem for a Dream is incredibly dark, very serious, and very disturbing to look at. Trainspotting does have those things, but not as intense as Requiem for a Dream does. Like I said, Trainspotting puts some humour in there, it puts some emotion in there, but you still have the dark imagery to balance it out, and it just makes for a more enjoyable movie. In terms of performances, everyone brings their A-game in this movie. You've got Ewan McGregor as Renton, who is kind of the person we see this story unveil through, and he's just a very likeable main character, even though some of his choices you don't agree with, but by the time the end of the movie comes around, you're 100% on his side. Then you have Ewan Bremner as Spud, who kind of, when you first see him, he's kind of like the idiot of the group, but as the film progresses, you do really feel sorry for him, because 9 out of 10 times, he ends up being that one person who's always in the wrong place at the wrong time. You then have Jonny Lee Miller as Sick Boy, and he's very good. He's like the methodical thinker of the group, but yet again, he does have a similar mindset to Ewan McGregor's character, and he's very interesting to watch. But if I had to choose a standout, it is easily Robert Carlyle as Begbie, who is just the biggest arsehole I've ever seen. He's very cocky, he swears a lot, and no matter who it is, he will always want to start a fight with someone. Even if it's just some random guy on the street, he will want to punch them in the face and slit their throat. And it makes for some very unnerving scenes, but at the same time, some of the scenes with Begbie in are some of the funniest in the movie. Also, I can't mention this movie without talking about its really, really good soundtrack. It's very rooted in 90s music. Like, you've got a bit of Iggy Pop, you've got a bit of Underworld, there's a bit of everything, but it just encapsulates the 90s so well, and that's pretty much what the whole film does, minus the heroin, but it just encapsulates the 90s in a nutshell. For a first time viewing, I absolutely loved Trainspotting, and I'm going to have to give it a 10 out of 10. This is one of the must-see movies of the 90s. and if you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend you check it out before the sequel comes out. I'm definitely going to see the sequel as soon as it arrives in cinemas, and I'm very looking forward to it. So guys, that was my review of Trainspotting. If you've seen the movie, which I presume most of you have, then leave a comment below and tell me what you think of it. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye!